I found my wife's phone unlocked on the kitchen counter at 2 a.m., and what I saw in those messages made 10 years of marriage feel like a carefully constructed lie. My name is Hector, I'm a developer, and I've been living in Charlotte with my wife Valerie for the past decade. We have 2 kids, ages 7 and 5. Valerie works as a nail technician at a salon downtown. On the surface, everything looked perfect. The house in a quiet neighborhood, 2 healthy children, stable jobs. But that night in early April changed everything. I hadn't been snooping. I swear I wasn't that kind of husband. I'd never been the type to check her phone, read her emails, or question where she'd been. We'd built our marriage on trust, or so I thought. That's what made that night so devastating. The accidental nature of the discovery, the way fate simply placed the evidence right in front of me when I was least prepared for it. I'd gotten up for water, my throat parched from the dry spring air that had been flowing through our bedroom window. The house was silent except for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of settling wood. I padded down the hallway in my bare feet, past the kids' rooms where I could hear their peaceful breathing, past the family photos lining the walls, pictures of beach vacations, birthday parties, and holiday gatherings that now felt like exhibits from someone else's life. When I entered the kitchen, I noticed her phone's screen glowing on the counter like a beacon in the darkness. She'd left it there after checking something before bed. The message preview was right there, illuminated in the dim light. Can't wait to see you this weekend. Same place in Asheville. My stomach dropped. For a moment, I stood frozen, the glass of water forgotten. My mind raced through innocent explanations, a friend, a colleague, a surprise birthday party being planned. But something in my gut, some primal instinct that had evolved over millions of years to detect danger, told me this was different. I picked up the phone with trembling hands. No passcode. She'd always said she had nothing to hide. What do I need to lock it for? She'd laughed when I suggested it once. You're my husband. I trust you with everything. Those words echoed mockingly in my mind now. The conversation was with someone named Roy. As I scrolled up, weeks of messages appeared, each one more damning than the last. Intimate messages filled with longing and passion. Plans to meet at specific times and places. Excuses she'd given me about visiting her parents suddenly had a different, sinister context. Missing you already, one message read. Last weekend was incredible. I can still feel your hands on me. Last weekend. When she'd told me her mother needed help organizing the garage. She'd left on Saturday morning with an overnight bag, kissed me goodbye, told me she'd be back Sunday evening. I'd spent that weekend with the kids. We'd gone to the science museum, made homemade pizza, watched movies cuddled together on the couch. Meanwhile, she'd been in some hotel room with another man. I scrolled further back, my chest tightening with each revelation. There were messages from February, from January, even from last December. While I was shopping for her Christmas present, she was texting him about how much she missed his touch. While we were celebrating New Year's Eve with champagne and promises, she was planning her next meeting with him. I took screenshots. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped the phone twice. There were photos too, nothing explicit, but pictures of them together at restaurants I'd never heard of, at a mountain overlook with his arm around her waist, holding hands across a candlelit table. In one photo, she was laughing in a way I hadn't seen in years, genuinely joyful, her face radiant. It was like looking at a stranger wearing my wife's face. I sent everything to my email and carefully placed her phone back exactly where I'd found it, making sure it was at the same angle, the same distance from the edge of the counter. Then I stood there in the dark kitchen, my heart pounding, my mind reeling, trying to process what I'd just discovered. Sleep didn't come that night. I lay next to Valerie in our bed, the bed we'd picked out together 8 years ago, the bed where we'd conceived our children, the bed where we'd had countless conversations about our dreams and fears, watching her breathe peacefully, wondering who this person really was. Had she always been capable of this? Had there been signs I'd missed? Or had something changed, some fundamental shift in who she was that I'd been too blind to see? In the morning, she kissed me goodbye like always, the same quick peck on the lips she'd given me for years. She reminded me to pick up our daughter from soccer practice, asked if I could stop by the store for milk, and left for work with a cheerful "love you" thrown over her shoulder. I stood at the door watching her drive away, my coffee mug gripped so tightly in my hand, I was surprised it didn't shatter. I called in sick. Then I made a call I never thought I'd make in my entire life. Sterling Investigations, this is Robin speaking. The detective agency was recommended by my friend Sam, who'd gone through something similar 2 years ago. His wife had been having an affair with her personal trainer. A cliché so obvious it was almost funny, except there was nothing funny about the devastation it had caused Sam and his kids. He'd hired Sterling Investigations, and they'd provided him with the evidence he needed for a favorable divorce settlement. Robin connected me with their lead investigator, a woman named Caitlin who had 20 years of experience in these cases. Her voice was warm but professional, the voice of someone who'd heard 1,000 stories like mine and knew exactly how to handle the raw emotion that came with them. "I need to know everything," I told her during our meeting that afternoon at their office in Uptown Charlotte. "Every detail, every lie. I need to know how deep this goes." Caitlin was professional and direct, her gray eyes assessing me carefully as we sat in her small, tidy office. "From what you've shown me, this isn't new. The familiarity in these messages, the ease of their communication, the inside jokes, this suggests they've known each other for a while. Do you know who Roy is?" I'd done some searching that morning while sitting in my home office, supposedly working, but actually diving deep into social media profiles and public records. "Roy Morrison. He's a sound engineer at Premier Productions. I think he might be her ex-boyfriend from before we met. She mentioned him once or twice early in our relationship, said they'd dated for a couple years in their early 20s. Caitlin nodded, making notes on her tablet. "That tracks. Reconnected relationships often have this intensity you're seeing in the messages. They're reliving old feelings, reimagining the past through rose-colored glasses, while simultaneously living double lives in the present. It's a particularly potent combination. I'll need to tail her, document everything, meetings, locations, timeline, frequency. It typically takes a week or two to build a complete picture." "Do it," I said without hesitation. "Whatever it costs, do it." The next 2 weeks were torture unlike anything I'd experienced before. I acted normal at home, a performance worthy of an Academy Award. Helped with homework, checking math problems, and reading essays about what our kids did on summer vacation. Made dinner, chopping vegetables and stirring pasta sauce while making small talk about our days. Laughed at Valerie's stories about difficult clients at the salon, nodding along as she complained about the woman who wanted stiletto nails, but refused to let them cure properly. All while Caitlin's updates arrived in encrypted emails that I checked obsessively, sometimes dozens of times a day. Day 3. Subject met with Roy Morrison at coffee shop on Tryon Street. Duration, 2 hours. Physical contact observed, hand-holding, kiss before departure. Subject appeared happy and relaxed. Multiple photos attached. Day 7. Subject told you she was working late for inventory night at the salon. Actual location, Roy Morrison's apartment complex, 1247 Westbrook Drive, Unit 304. Arrived 6:47 p.m., departed 11:23 p.m. Lights were on in unit throughout visit. Subject appeared disheveled when departing. Day 12. Subject and Roy Morrison checked into Mountain View Hotel in Asheville. Room 304. Subject told you she was visiting her parents to help them prepare for their garage sale. Credit card records show dinner at expensive French restaurant, room service breakfast. Subject remained in room from 8 p.m. Friday until 11 a.m. Sunday. Each update was a knife twist, a fresh wound that reopened all the previous ones. But I needed everything documented. I needed an ironclad case. Because I wasn't just collecting evidence for a divorce. I was building something bigger, something that would ensure justice not just for me, but for everyone whose lives had been touched by this deception. See, I'd done my research on Roy too. The sound engineer worked for Premier Productions, a mid-sized company that prided itself on family values and Christian principles. Their website prominently featured a mission statement about integrity, honesty, and moral character. Their contracts, which I found through some creative LinkedIn networking, included strict morality clauses about conduct unbecoming of company representatives. I'd also discovered something interesting through a combination of social media detective work and good old-fashioned Google searches. Roy was engaged to a woman named Valentine Stewart who worked as a third-grade teacher at an elementary school in Asheville. Her Facebook profile was full of pictures of her students' artwork, posts about education policy, and photos of her and Roy at various events. In her most recent post, from just 2 weeks ago, she'd shared a picture of her engagement ring with the caption, "Can't wait to marry my best friend." 2 families. For lives about to implode. Children who would be affected. A woman who had no idea her fiancé was living a double life. I didn't confront Valerie yet. Instead, I methodically prepared, treating it like a complex coding project at work. Break it down into components, address each systematically, test thoroughly before deployment. I opened a separate bank account at a different bank and transferred half of our savings, my legal right under North Carolina law. I documented all our assets in a detailed spreadsheet: the house, the cars, retirement accounts, investment portfolios, even the furniture and electronics. I spoke with a divorce attorney named Gregory Walsh, who specialized in high-conflict cases. His office was in a sleek building downtown, all glass and steel, and his reputation was formidable. People called him the Shark, but Sam had assured me that Gregory was fair. He just fought hard for his clients. "You want full custody?" Gregory asked, reviewing my file with the careful attention of someone who'd seen every variation of marital disaster imaginable. "I want what's best for my kids. I want them to see that actions have consequences, but I also don't want them to lose their mother entirely. They love her, despite what she's done. Joint custody, but I want primary residence. I want stability for them, a home where they know they'll wake up every morning, where their routine is consistent." "With this evidence, that's more than achievable," Gregory said, his confidence reassuring. "The documentation is thorough, the pattern is clear, and North Carolina courts take parental stability seriously." I also did something Valerie would never expect. I reached out to Valentine. It took me 3 days to craft the message. How do you tell a stranger that her fiancé is cheating on her with your wife? How do you break someone's heart via social media? In the end, I kept it simple and direct. "You don't know me, but we need to talk about Roy Morrison. It's urgent and it concerns both our lives. I have information you need to see." She responded within an hour. "Who is this? What kind of information? I'd rather meet in person. I have evidence I need to show you. I know this sounds strange, but please trust me, you need to know this." We met at a park in Asheville on a Saturday morning, while Valerie thought I was at a coding conference in Raleigh. Valentine was younger than I expected, maybe late 20s, with long dark hair and kind eyes that reminded me of the person I thought Valerie was 10 years ago. She looked nervous, clutching her purse like a shield as she sat down on the bench beside me. "I don't understand," she said after I showed her the evidence on my tablet. Screenshots of messages, photos of Valerie and Roy together, hotel receipts, Caitlin's surveillance reports with timestamps and locations. Her hands shook as she scrolled through the documentation, her face growing paler with each swipe. "Roy told me he was working on a project in Charlotte. That's why he's been gone so much, why he's been staying over during the week. He said the commute was too much, that the company was putting him up in an apartment. He's been with my wife," I said gently. "They were together before I met her, dated for about 2 years in their early 20s. They reconnected through Facebook 8 months ago. The messages start in September." Valentine's face went pale, her breath catching. 8 months? We got engaged 6 months ago. He proposed in October, on my birthday. It was so romantic. He rented out an entire restaurant, had a violinist playing our song. Was he all ready? "Yes," I confirmed, my heart aching for her. According to the messages, their first meeting in person after reconnecting was in early September. They've been consistent since then, at least twice a month, sometimes more. We talked for 2 hours on that park bench while joggers passed by and children played on the nearby playground, their laughter a strange counterpoint to our conversation about betrayal and deception. Valentine cried, anger and hurt warring on her face. She told me about their relationship, how they'd met at a music festival, how Roy had seemed so genuine and devoted. She showed me pictures of them together, at concerts, on hiking trips, at her parents' house for Thanksgiving. "He met my family," she whispered. "My grandmother gave him her blessing. She never likes anyone." By the end, we had a plan. Valentine was hurt, but she was also practical and, I realized, quite strong beneath her initial shock. The confrontation happened on a Tuesday evening in late April. Spring was in full bloom, dogwoods flowering throughout the neighborhood, their white and pink blossoms mocking the death of my marriage. I'd arranged for the kids to have a sleepover at Sam's house. I'd told them it was a special treat, and they'd been thrilled at the prospect of spending time with Sam's kids and their new puppy. When Valerie came home at 6:30, her usual time, I was sitting at the kitchen table with printed copies of everything spread out in neat rows. Messages organized chronologically, photos arranged by date, hotel receipts highlighted with dates and amounts, Caitlin's surveillance logs with their clinical descriptions of betrayal. "Hector? What's all this?" Her voice was light, curious, still innocent. She set her purse down on the counter, The same counter where I'd found her phone that night that now felt like a lifetime ago. "Sit down, Valerie." Something in my tone made her freeze. She saw the first photo, her and Roy at a restaurant, his hand on her cheek, and the color drained from her face. "I can explain." "Don't. Please don't insult me by lying anymore." My voice was calmer than I felt, years of practice at controlling my emotions in high-pressure work situations finally paying off. "I know about Roy. I know he's your ex-boyfriend from college. I know you reconnected on Facebook 8 months ago. I know you've been meeting him for months. I know about Asheville, about the Mountain View Hotel, about every Tuesday you claimed was inventory night at the salon. I know about every time you lied about visiting your parents, every late night at his apartment, every stolen weekend while I watched our children and believed my wife was exactly who she pretended to be." Tears started flowing, mascara beginning to streak down her cheeks. "It just happened. We reconnected, and the feelings came back, and I didn't mean for it to. Nothing just happens, Valerie. You made choices. Every message you sent, every hotel room you booked, every lie you told me and our children, those were deliberate choices. You chose this. Every single day for 8 months, you woke up and chose to deceive me." She was crying harder now, but I felt nothing. The tears that might have moved me a month ago, that might have made me want to comfort her and fix things, now just seemed like another manipulation. "Do you love him?" I asked, the question I'd been avoiding but needed answered. She hesitated, her hands twisting in her lap, then nodded slowly. "Yes. I'm sorry, but yes. I love him." At least she was finally honest about something. "Then you can be with him," I said calmly, sliding the divorce papers across the table. "I've filed for divorce. My attorney, Gregory Walsh, will send the official papers tomorrow, but here's your courtesy copy. I've secured legal counsel, documented everything extensively, and ensured our assets are properly accounted for and protected. You'll get your fair share according to North Carolina law, half of the marital assets, appropriate support if needed. But I'm requesting primary custody of the children." "You can't take my children." She stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "They're mine too. I'm not taking them from you. But they deserve stability, and you've proven you're willing to lie, deceive, and prioritize your own desires over their well-being. We'll share custody. I'm not trying to eliminate you from their lives. But they'll live primarily with me, in a stable home environment with a parent who isn't sneaking around and living a double life." Her shock transformed into anger, her face flushing. "This is insane. We can work through this. Couples survive affairs all the time. We can go to counseling, we can rebuild trust." "No, we can't. Because you don't actually want to work through this, Valerie. You want to have your cake and eat it too. You want the stability and security I provide while having the passion and excitement Roy offers. But that's not how life works. You have to choose. And you already chose. You chose Roy 8 months ago, every time you met him, every time you lied to me." "I will go to him," she shouted, desperation creeping into her voice. "He loves me. He understands me in ways you never did. He makes me feel alive. He makes me feel like I matter." "Good. You should call him now, actually. Tell him you're coming over. Tell him it's all out in the open, and you can finally be together openly." She grabbed her phone from her purse, confusion crossing her face at my unexpected encouragement. "Fine. I will. You'll see, he wants to be with me. He's told me so many times." She called. I watched her face carefully as confusion replaced anger, then concern, then something approaching panic. "He's not answering," she said, trying again. The phone rang and rang, eventually going to voicemail. She left a message, her voice shaking. "Roy, it's me. Please call me back. It's important. Hector knows. Please, I need to talk to you." "Try Valentine," I suggested, my voice mild. "Who?" She looked at me blankly, genuinely confused. "His fiancée, Valentine Stewart. The third-grade teacher he's been engaged to for the past 6 months while he's been sleeping with you." The color drained from her face completely. She looked like she might faint. "That's not. He told me he was single. He told me he broke up with his last girlfriend over a year ago because she couldn't understand his work schedule. He lied. Just like you lied to me. Just like both of you lied to everyone around you. Valentine knew nothing about you until I told her last week. We met in Asheville at Riverside Park. We spent 2 hours comparing notes, sharing evidence, piecing together the full picture of Roy's deception. She had no idea her fiancé was maintaining a relationship with his ex-girlfriend. She thought he was working in Charlotte, staying in a company apartment during the week. You didn't, Valerie whispered, sinking back into her chair. I didn't what? Tell the truth? Show another victim of Roy's lies exactly what kind of man she was planning to marry. You're destroying everything. I'm not destroying anything. I'm revealing what was already destroyed. You and Roy did that when you started this affair. Valentine broke off the engagement yesterday after confirming everything I told her. She confronted him at his apartment with all the evidence. But here's the interesting part. She also sent all of the documentation to his employer, to Premier Productions' HR department and their ethics board. Valerie stared at me like I was a stranger, like I'd become someone she didn't recognize. You didn't. I didn't. Valentine did. She made that choice on her own. Roy's company has strict morality clauses in their contracts, clearly stated in Section 7, Paragraph 3. Conduct unbecoming of company representatives, particularly adultery with a married woman while being engaged himself and lying to clients about his relationship status, that's explicitly listed as a violation subject to immediate termination. He was fired this morning at 9 a.m. Valentine sent me a text confirming it. Valerie's phone buzzed. She looked at it desperately, a text from Roy. I couldn't see what it said, but her face crumpled as she read it. He's blaming me, she whispered. He says this is all my fault. He says I pursued him, that he tried to end it multiple times, but I wouldn't let him. Is that true? I asked, though I already knew the answer from the messages. No. He pursued me. He sent the first message on Facebook. He suggested meeting up. He said he'd never stopped loving me, that marrying you was my biggest mistake. She was crying again, but now with a different quality, the realization that she'd been played just as much as I had. She tried calling Roy 17 times that night. He never answered. Every call went straight to voicemail. The text messages she sent, desperate, pleading, angry, confused, went unanswered. I later learned from Valentine, who I'd developed an odd friendship with through our shared trauma, that Roy blamed Valerie for everything. He told Valentine that Valerie had pursued him relentlessly, that he'd tried to break it off multiple times, but she'd threatened to go to his employer if he did, that he felt trapped and manipulated. All lies, according to the hundreds of messages I had saved, backed up, and stored in multiple locations. The messages clearly showed mutual pursuit, mutual desire, and mutual planning. But Roy, facing the consequences of his actions, did what weak people do. He rewrote history to make himself the victim. The divorce took 4 months to finalize, for months of legal proceedings, mediation sessions, and difficult conversations. Valerie initially fought for equal custody, her attorney arguing that her affair didn't make her a bad mother, that the children loved her and needed her equally. Technically, she wasn't wrong. The affair itself didn't directly impact her parenting. But her attorney advised her to accept the settlement when they saw the full extent of the evidence and realized that a judge would likely see the pattern of deception as a character issue relevant to custody decisions. Joint custody was established, with me having primary residence. Assets were split down the middle, exactly as required by law. The house was sold, neither of us could afford it alone, and neither of us wanted to live there with all those memories anyway. I bought a smaller but comfortable place close to the kids' schools, a 3-bedroom ranch with a fenced backyard where we could start building new, honest memories. Roy and Valerie did stay together, actually. I hadn't expected that, but Valentine told me they moved in together almost immediately after the divorce was finalized. He couldn't find work in his field in North Carolina after word spread about why he'd been fired from such a respected company. The production community in the area is surprisingly small and tight-knit, and nobody wanted the liability of hiring someone terminated for a morality clause violation. They moved to Florida about 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Fort Myers according to Valentine, who occasionally checked their social media. Valerie left her job at the salon, left her friends, left the city she'd lived in for a decade. She gave up everything familiar for a man who'd lied to her just as extensively as he'd lied to his fiancée. The kids visit her 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks in summer, as stipulated in the custody agreement. The first few visits were hard. They'd come back confused and sad, asking questions I struggled to answer honestly while not poisoning them against their mother. They struggled initially with the changes, their grades dipping, nightmares becoming frequent. But children are resilient with proper support. I made sure they had counseling with Dr. Patricia Morrison, a child psychologist who specialized in helping kids navigate divorce. I kept their routines stable, same bedtimes, same school, same after-school activities. And I never spoke badly about their mother in front of them, even when I wanted to, even when they asked difficult questions about why we weren't together anymore. Sometimes adults make mistakes, I told them. Sometimes people grow apart. But your mom and I both love you very much, and that will never change. Sam asked me once, over beers at his place while the kids played video games in the other room, if I felt guilty about what happened to Roy. He was a casualty of his own choices, I told him, taking a long drink. I didn't invent the affair. I didn't create his company's policies. I didn't force him to lie to Valentine or pursue my wife. I simply made sure the truth was known to people who deserved to know it. If the truth destroyed him, maybe he should have considered that before pursuing my wife while being engaged to someone else. Did Valerie ever really love me? I don't think so, not in the way I loved her. Looking back with the clarity that only betrayal can provide, I think I was safe, stable, a good provider and father. I represented security and responsibility. Roy represented something else: passion, history, the excitement of youth, the road not taken. When he reappeared in her life through social media, she saw a chance to reclaim something she thought she'd lost. She chose that road, and it led her exactly where her choices deserved to take her. To Florida, away from her support system, dependent on a man who'd proven he'd lie to anyone when convenient. I don't wish her harm. She's still the mother of my children, but I don't feel guilty about the consequences she faced either. I'm building a new life now, one based on honesty and authenticity. The kids are thriving. Their grades are back up. They've made new friends in our new neighborhood, and they seem genuinely happy most days. My son joined Little League, something he'd been asking about for years, but we never had time for. My daughter is taking art classes, and her work covers our refrigerator with colorful evidence of her healing. I've been on a few dates. It's strange, putting yourself back out there after 10 years with one person. I'm honest about my situation: divorced, 2 kids, ex-wife lives in Florida with the man she had an affair with. Some women run at that disclosure. Others appreciate the honesty and stick around for a second date. I'm in no rush. I'm learning who I am as a single father, as an individual rather than half of a couple. My career is going well. Turns out that when you're not lying awake until 2 a.m. wondering if your spouse is cheating, when you're not expending emotional energy maintaining a facade of normalcy while dying inside, you have a lot more mental bandwidth for work. I got a promotion 6 months after the divorce was finalized, a senior developer position with a significant raise. The extra money helps with the kids' expenses and their college funds. Valentine sent me a message last month, a long text that arrived late one evening. She's engaged again, to a man she describes as genuinely kind and honest, someone who works as a veterinarian and volunteers at animal shelters on weekends. She sent a picture of them together. He has kind eyes, and she's smiling that same radiant smile I saw in photos of her and Roy, but this time it seems more genuine, more grounded in reality rather than fantasy. She thanked me for telling her the truth when I could have just handled my own situation quietly, when I could have let her marry Roy and discover his nature later. "You saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life," she wrote. "I'm so grateful, even though the truth hurt terribly at the time. Some people might say I went too far. That destroying Roy's career was vengeful, that I should have just gotten my divorce and moved on, that I made Valentine's pain worse by involving her. My sister said as much when I told her the full story. She felt I'd been cruel, that I'd taken satisfaction in others' suffering. But I disagree. I protected my children by ensuring I had primary custody and a stable home environment. I ended a toxic marriage before wasting more years on someone who demonstrated they couldn't be trusted. And I ensured that 2 serial liars faced real consequences for their deception. Roy didn't just betray Valentine. He actively participated in the destruction of my family while lying to his own fiancée, while violating the trust of his employer who valued integrity and honesty. Actions have consequences. That's a lesson I'm teaching my kids, not through lectures but through the example of how I handled this situation. I could have yelled, broken things, made dramatic scenes. Instead, I documented everything methodically, made strategic decisions based on evidence rather than emotion, and ensured that the truth came to light in ways that protected the innocent parties. The house on Willow Street is in my rearview mirror now, both literally and metaphorically. So is the version of myself who trusted blindly, who assumed that love and commitment meant the same thing to everyone. I learned that some people are capable of extraordinary deception, that they can kiss you goodbye in the morning and text their lover before they reach the highway, that they can make love to you on Tuesday and make love to someone else on Wednesday. I learned that the person sharing your bed can be a complete stranger, that you can live with someone for a decade and not really know them at all. That the mother of your children, the woman who stood beside you at your wedding and promised forsaking all others, can be simultaneously planning which hotel to meet her ex-boyfriend at while discussing your daughter's parent-teacher conference. But I also learned that I'm stronger than I thought, that I can make difficult decisions and follow through on them, that I can protect what matters most, my children and my own dignity, that I don't have to accept betrayal just because someone cries and apologizes, just because it would be easier to forgive and try again. I learned that sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same thing, that sometimes you have to burn down the life you built to create space for something honest and real. My daughter asked me recently, out of nowhere, while we were making breakfast on a Saturday morning, if I'm happy now. She's perceptive, always has been. She sees more than most 7-year-olds. I told her the truth, because I've learned that truth, however painful, is always better than comfortable lies. I'm happier than I was living a lie, sweetheart. I'm happier knowing that our life now is real and honest. And that's worth everything. She nodded solemnly, satisfied with my answer, and went back to helping me flip pancakes. And in that moment, watching my daughter smile as we cooked together in our new kitchen, in our new house, in our new life built on honesty rather than deception, I knew I'd made the right choice. The road ahead isn't easy. Single parenthood is exhausting. Dating in your mid-30s with kids and baggage is complicated. Some days I'm lonely. Some days I miss what I thought I had, even though I know it was never real. But I can look at myself in the mirror now. I can sleep through the night without wondering where my partner really is. I can trust my own judgment again. And I can show my children, through example rather than words, that integrity matters, that truth matters, that we don't have to accept betrayal and deception as the price of love. That's the real victory. Not the divorce settlement, not Roy's firing, not even the primary custody. The real victory is reclaiming myself, rebuilding my life on a foundation of truth, and moving forward with my children towards something better. The midnight discovery that shattered my world also freed me from a lie I didn't even know I was living. And for that, despite all the pain, I'm grateful. Thank you for watching the video to the end. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. A playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to is now displayed on the screen. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.